Hello and welcome to Healthily. I'm Nicola Moore, registered nutritional therapist on a mission to champion positive health messages and relationships with food. And this is the podcast where I bottle the wisdom of fellow expert health professionals to share for your listening pleasure. I've spent the best part of the last 20 years working one-to-one with women who are in need of help reclaiming their health and finding freedom from food-related anxiety. My work never involves blanket recommendations about what someone should or shouldn't eat, as I don't find this helpful at all. We all have our own unique relationships with food, from our likes, dislikes, appetite, hunger and fullness mechanisms, to the beliefs and entrenched messages about what's healthy and what's not that can often block a free and joyous relationship with food. It's for this reason I wanted to speak to my lovely friend and mindfulness teacher, Katie Sheen of Soul Nutrition, for a few simple techniques that can set us on the path to feeling more positive and gain more enjoyment from food. But before I get into today's episode, I wanted to say a very quick thank you to the sponsor of this series, the Institute for Optimum Nutrition. The Institute for Optimum Nutrition is widely considered a leader in the field of nutritional therapy and functional medicine training both in the UK and internationally, and they welcome students from all around the globe thanks to their distance learning BSc Honours degree in nutritional therapy. Their mission is to educate and enthuse installing optimum nutrition as the foundation of health for all, which I think is simply superb and something I personally endeavour to do every day in my work too. As well as training the majority of the UK's nutritional therapists, the Institute also runs practitioner short courses, and for the general public they have a wonderful quarterly magazine and monthly newsletter. To find out more about the courses offered by the Institute for Optimum Nutrition, including their degree top-up and short courses, or to register for their magazine and newsletter, visit their website at www.ion.ac.uk. And now for today's episode. Katie Sheen specialises in helping you find your unique path to a calmer, happier life. Enhanced by a range of resources on her Soul Nutrition website, her gentle, supportive teaching style enables you to flourish in your own time and at your own pace. Katie has been enjoying mindfulness in her own life for over 16 years and regularly attends training and retreats in both secular mindfulness and Buddhist traditions. Raised in the hospitality industry, Katie saw from an early age how food is used to bring people together and form the heart of happy memories. She then went on to study the ways in which food can be used above and beyond these social occasions to support both physical and psychological health, and has travelled extensively to teach on nutrition-related subjects. She leads bespoke workshops and webinars for a range of corporate clients and charities, and as well as support groups. And she also runs regular events, meditation classes, courses and retreats for the general public, which she is gradually moving online in order to meet the global demand for mindfulness support. Now, I weave mindfulness techniques into my work with my clients on a weekly basis and have also seen huge benefit in adopting the practice into my own life. So it was wonderful to be able to devote some proper time talking to Katie about this fascinating subject today. Here she is, and I really hope you enjoy listening. Hi Katie, thank you so much for coming to speak to me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. It's really, really nice to see and be chatting to you again.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted really to speak to you specifically because we met many years ago at the Institute for Optimum Nutrition. So in my, you won't remember this, but in my first year working at ION, you were in your very last year and you were in the training clinic. So you were studying at that point nutritional therapy. And I remember having some really enriching conversations with you about what I don't know. I just found you amazing, and the experiences you've been through and how you use your experiences to guide you with your life and your projects. And you were setting up a charity, or you'd set up a charity and were working with that at the time. And I know that you don't work really with nutrition so much anymore, but you are a mindfulness teacher, and that you've done huge amounts of training in mindfulness. And I believe in mindfulness so completely, and a lot of the work I do with my clients is helping them to have a good relationship with food, and become mindful about food, and in a really empowering and positive and supportive way. So I think that my clients and other people would really benefit from hearing about you and your work, and I'm hoping to learn more from you today, if that's okay.
Of course, yeah. And that's why I find you so inspiring as well, because, I think that's a real shared value of ours. And that's how I got into mindfulness is, as you say, I started with the strong scientific training. And then the longer that I was in clinic, I thought, what, if I can help these people to be happier, I think a lot of the things will disappear.
Yes.
And I've been using mindfulness in my own life for such a long time that just was a natural progression.
Yeah. So what is your background and your story then, for people who want to know more about you?
Well, I'm in my early 50s now, so I'm not quite sure how far back you want me to go. Really, really briefly. So I was brought up in the hotel industry.
Right.
And so my relationship with food was based on that joy of producing food for people and seeing people create happy memories around food, and it being at the centre of celebrations and all sorts of social events. So that's going back to my parents bought their first hotel when I was 5 years old, and I was raised in the hospitality industry. My youngest son is a fine dining chef, and my niece is a receptionist. So we're still very involved with the hospitality industry.
Oh my gosh! So you get loads of nice food cooked for you, do you?
Oh yeah, he's an amazing chef. Yes. So although of course because we're recording this in the middle of lockdown, he's now doing a veg box delivery scheme. So I'll give him a plug. That's Rogues London. If anyone's interested, quick plug for my son. That was unexpected. Thank you for that opportunity. So then my first career was actually in TV. I was starting TV advertising, then moved to BBC Television, and I was a researcher and then a producer, director, assistant producer, and then director for children's programmes. So, and then I stopped work as the BBC Oxford Road disappeared, and all the children's programmes moved to London, had my children, and was then in position of like, well, I needed to start again with a different career, and that's when I started training in nutrition.
Right. Okay.
But in the middle of all of that, my sister's husband, Paul, who was also in hospitality actually, he was diagnosed with brain cancer. That was at the end of 2000. He was 30 years old, and he died 5 years later. And obviously that experience just changed everything for my whole family. And for me, part of that was I'd always been interested in nutrition. We got much more interested in how nutrition could support Paul and the rest of us with all of our various health issues. And it was a nutritional therapist that said to me, why don't you train at ION? And of course I did, and that's where I met you and lots of other fantastic nutritional therapists. And from there, I went on to teach on the master's degree at University of Worcester, the MSc Nutritional Therapy. So during that time, I did my PGCE and my master's degree in education. And I was also doing a lot of work for Lambert's Healthcare, and I still deliver CPD seminars for Lambert's Healthcare.
You? I didn't know that.
Yeah, still part of the team there with Lorraine and Shula. And, so I still kind of, keep my hand in with that side of things. But then I was diagnosed with cancer at the end of 2014 and treated in 2015. And so that's the point at which I stopped my private nutritional therapy clinics, because I really felt that was such a difficult experience for me, and I was in a lot of pain for at least a year after, and it's taken me a long, long time to recover. And I think, well, I know that I just wasn't in the right space where I could provide support to other people. I think if you're in this kind of profession where you're helping other people, you have to be strong enough to be able to give out. And there are certain times in life where I think we have to be honest and say, you know what, I've just got to focus on healing myself. And obviously through that experience, then we bring something new to our practice, because you're really then sharing something from the heart because you've absolutely lived it. And during my cancer recovery, nutrition was incredibly important. But my mindfulness was invaluable. So I discovered mindfulness it's one of those things that you can't quite remember when you first read your first thing, but it must have been probably 2001, 2002. And then I went on my first Buddhist retreat by 2003, and I've been practicing ever since. So.
Amazing. Yeah. And it was working with the nutrition students at Worcester really that opened your eyes to that you could bring this in. And
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was using mindfulness for me. I never intended to teach it. I just found that the philosophy and the teachings were so practical. That they helped me to process trauma, to heal, to understand myself better, to express myself more clearly, to be calmer, obviously. But the calmness is something that I think is really emphasized in the media. And to me, using mindfulness to calm yourself is the tip of the iceberg. That's the first micro step into what mindfulness can bring you. And that's why I'm focusing more and more on teaching it, because the breadth and the depth of what it can be used for isn't quite the right word. It's a way of living and being and responding to the world. So yeah, what happened at Worcester is that I was module leader and developed for complex case studies, and developed a lecture around motivating client change, because I think if anyone that works in healthcare even, I think, is this, that it's all right giving somebody the information, this could help you. But the really clever thing is to help them to make the changes.
Yes.
It's so hard for all of us, isn't it, to actually make changes. And so that was when I first started bringing in mindful eating and so on and so forth. And then gradually my students said, will you come and teach this in my workplace? Right. And that's how the corporate work began.
Isn't it wonderful? Because now corporate work is something where you're, really prevalent and doing an awful lot with a wide range of organisations, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
Regularly, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, and I really enjoyed that and the conference work. But I also really love delivering the courses and the classes for the general public.
Yes,
because then you've got, it is a little bit frustrating to be brought in and you do one thing in a corporate and then they don't follow up. But some corporates do a lot more than that, and that's where it's really rewarding, is when you're brought in on a regular basis. There's one company where I've been going in every week for over a year now.
Amazing.
And that's really rewarding, because then you can really see people progress.
Absolutely. I think when some of these forward-thinking employers really understand the really important role of well-being in the workplace, how it helps at so many levels. And it's interesting when you're saying that it's just the top tip of the iceberg, for calming. I imagine with mindfulness, it must be the gift that keeps on giving, really. Definitely. The more layers you peel away and the deeper that you can go into exploring, how it can help every aspect of life. And with the, I suppose with the role that emotions play in our food choices and food and things like that, how do you see mindfulness being important in that area?
So there's lots of different ways that it can help. So I guess the most obvious and sort of in the moment way is that the way that you begin to teach people mindfulness is to go back to their body to actually sense what's going on.
Right.
So I've done quite a lot of training in trauma-sensitive mindfulness. So I say that with the caveat that for some people to go back to their body is traumatic, because they've got a very difficult relationship with their body, with the sensations, with memories, with self-esteem, with how they view their body. So depending on the individual, depends on where you start and which practices you use. So for example, if somebody, as soon as they go back to the body, the first thought that comes to mind is, I hate my body. So the first thing before we even go anywhere near the food is to look at their relationship with themselves. And so there are lots of really beautiful practices around loving kindness, and about learning to be kinder to self. So one of the most simple practices which when I first heard it, I thought, oh, this is really bizarre. I don't know how this works. It's just to smile to your body.
Right.
Smile to yourself. And
is that physically smiling?
Yeah,
is it,
physically smiling. So for example, if you were to do it, so a lot of people have heard of a body scan. So what we mean by body scan is that you would close your eyes and then you would become aware of your eyes, for example, and then your nose, your ears, your mouth. You'd move through. And a traditional body scan that people might have done is just like breathing into those areas, releasing tension.
Yes, so, as you might do at the beginning of, let's say, a meditation or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. So if you add into that you become aware of your eyes and then you smile to your eyes. And the idea is that you do have just a half smile. This isn't like a manic grin or anything like that. And the important thing is the intention behind it is a sense of kindness. Making friends with, so if you start with something like your eyes, you can imagine also that you're looking at somebody who you really care for, and you look at their eyes, and when you smile at them, there is this sense of kindness towards this person that you feel positive about. And so it's that sense of kindness that we're trying to recreate, if you like. And so if you start with parts of your body like your eyes, and you can imagine smiling, and then as you smile to them, for me, and this is part of the practice, is that then there is a sense of gratitude and appreciation. I appreciate my eyes, and so I'm smiling to my eyes and think, yeah, actually, I'm very grateful that I've got my eyes, and my eyesight is terrible, but if I put my glasses on, or if I put my contact lenses in, or even if I don't have glasses or contact lenses, I can still see colour. And if I hold things close, I'm really short-sighted. If I hold things close, I can see detail. But once I've got my glasses on, I can see all sorts of stuff. And so wow, and you go off on this really positive train of thought about your eyes. And so there's no need to rush through this kind of exercise. You can spend time enjoying your eyes, and then your nose, and then if you work through all the parts of your body, so you would smile, become aware of and smile to your liver, for example.
Right, okay.
And if people then think, I have no idea where my liver is actually, well, go and Google it, see where your liver is and kind of what it does, and smile to your liver, and smile to, your adrenal glands, and smile to whatever. And so what that does is that you get used to smiling and looking with kindness at your body.
And how often would you do that? Would you do that every day? Or?
So if I go back to the point where I was recovering from cancer, I was in a lot of physical pain. I did that more than once a day.
Right, okay.
I mean, partly because I was just recovering. So, and in the early days, I was really traumatized. I couldn't watch TV or read or anything like that because my whole nervous system was such a mess. So I had plenty of time to do that. But with a normal, you see, the thing is that, yes, it's ideally a good time to do it is maybe as you wake up in the morning. Is, when you're lying there and you're still nice and cozy, maybe the alarm's gone off and you just bang it on to snooze, is instead of allowing your mind to jump forward into the day, which for people like me that have got a tendency towards anxiety, I noticed that I would be immediately, oh my goodness, I've got this to do and that to do and planning and blah. I've not even got out of bed yet and I'm exhausted by the power of thinking. And what mindfulness helps you to do is to notice what you are thinking about and the effect that it is having on your body as well as on your emotions. So to recognize in the morning that I have a tendency for my mind to do that, and to bring it back and think, just breathe, just feel the sensation of your body breathing, and then tune into up any part of your body. You don't have to do the whole body scan each time, and just think, I'll just pick a bit today. I'm going to focus on my left knee and I'm going to smile to my left knee and really appreciate the fact that my knees work. But I chose my left knee then because I used to have chronic pain in my left knee.
Right, okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, could you pick a thing that's a problem? Yeah,
definitely. So I picked that. So when I first did that exercise, I was working through my body. I got to my left knee, and the first thing that sprung to mind is I am not smiling to my left knee. Like, that is a real problem. It's always a problem. It stops me doing stuff. All this negative emotion came out. And I thought, wow, if I am carrying around that amount of negative feeling towards part of me, what is that doing to me? That's certainly not going to help the pain. And it also means that I don't respond to the pain with kindness. So I wouldn't think, oh, my knee is hurting. Oh, bless, I need to look after myself a bit more and notice what makes it worse and what makes it better. I would just be cross and then tend to push myself too hard, which would make the pain worse, for example.
Yeah, and sort of from a basic physiological level, I guess, encouraging a stress response, which isn't good, is it?
Absolutely. So that's the difference between primary and secondary suffering is that the primary suffering is the pain in the knee, but your mind can create a whole other level of suffering on top of that, which is the stories that we spin around the pain. And so a real basic definition of mindfulness is that you notice what you are thinking. So you can begin to look at your thoughts rather than seeing the world from inside your thoughts.
And do you have to do anything about that, or can you just notice it?
You start by just noticing. That is the first step. And what I found astonishing, and I still find astonishing because, I'm not Buddha yet. And that is a really important thing about mindfulness practices is that it's called a practice for a reason, which is it's one of those things that we will never be perfect human beings. And a big part of mindfulness is learning to accept the fact that we are, I laugh about it, so fabulously flawed. We are all flawed. We never, it's part of being human is to make mistakes, but to learn to be kind to ourselves around that.
Well, yeah, what's interesting, because the friendships we have, the people we know, the relationships we're in, we can probably all identify the flaws in those people, but it doesn't mean we love them less or that there's and yet we don't necessarily afford ourselves our own kindness in that regard.
Absolutely. And that for me has been one of the greatest ongoing lessons of mindfulness is to learn to be kind to myself. And to really listen. So that's another whole element of mindfulness is this idea of, now traditionally it would be called acceptance, but in our language, acceptance has that connotation that then you don't do anything about it. And it's not really like that. It's more about allowing. So, for example, is that you feel a strong emotion about something. And a lot of the time, if we label that emotion as negative, then negative talk follows. So, for example, we say something to somebody that we regret. And then we're immediately being so hard on ourselves. Oh, I can't believe that you should have said that. And you go over and over and over again. You build it up into this huge thing, which means that you're not thinking clearly. And it means that it makes it very difficult to then put things right. Whereas if you immediately think, oh my goodness, I'm not sure that was taken the way that I intended. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Is that if you breathe and think, okay, well, no wonder that I feel regret at the moment because I genuinely think that I've done some harm to somebody. But if you allow yourself to feel that regret, then the second thing that comes is, so what can I do about that? And because you've already started to respond to yourself with kindness, it's very easy then to go back to that person and say, look, I know this sounds a bit odd, but I said this to you and I'm really bothered that I upset you. And the number of times I do that and people go, I don't even remember you saying that. And I think, wow, I've just spent a long time worrying about that. But actually, when I speak to that person, they always end up saying, it's so sweet of you to be bothered about the fact that you thought you'd upset me. And no, that's not how it was. Or obviously, sometimes they say, well, yeah, actually, I did find that difficult. But then we were immediately into a conversation where we can talk about that and put that right.
Yeah.
And it means that you don't walk around life with lots of false perceptions.
Yeah, it's very easy, isn't it, to develop some sort of a fantasy in your head based on a throwaway comment that you've made or anything. And it is a fantasy, isn't it, most of the time?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I know it sounds as though we're not talking about anything to do with food here, and people may be tuning in to talk about food, but the reason that this is all important is because if we're not aware of how we're thinking, and we can't see how our thoughts can drive suffering, then if we have a tendency towards comfort eating, the problem isn't with the food. The problem is with everything else that is going on in life. And I definitely notice if I am more stressed, I eat differently. And if I'm too busy, I eat really badly because I don't put aside the time to eat. And particularly to prepare food, it's just like, oh, seriously, my head is over here and food kind of gets in the way of that. And so I think for me, my relationship with food is easily as much to do with my relationship with everything else in my life as it is to do with the food itself. And so if I focus on how am I feeling, and what do I do about that, then if I am feeling happy, relaxed, more in control of life, my food choices are necessarily better. But going back to that idea of smiling as well, is that because I'm in the habit of smiling to my heart and to my liver and to this, that, and the other, all the different parts of me, then if I then consume foods that put stress on those parts of my body, it doesn't feel right because and this sounds so strange when you say it out loud. So all I can say to all those people who are thinking, this woman is a bit odd, try this, because I was exactly the same. When I first heard about this practice of smiling to myself, I thought it was really odd. And also, like I say, bits of my body I found really difficult to smile to. So the idea, if you find a part of your body that you find it difficult to smile to, is smile to it a little bit and then move away.
Right, okay.
Or just recognise, I can't do that at the moment, but notice that is actually something that needs looking at.
Yes.
And then just keep coming back to it gently. So notice the parts of your body that are easy to smile to and do those until you relax, and then look a little bit at the bit that you find difficult, come away again back to the bits that feel confident, and gradually just keep going back to the area that you found difficult until it becomes easy. So never force yourself to feel differently about something.
What about
it's very gentle.
What about feeling compassion then? What if you were to move from sort of not being very happy with your knee to then suddenly moving on to compassion for your knees? Would such a thing happen?
Absolutely. So compassion is the word that is most often used. You're absolutely right. But compassion in our culture, people aren't always quite sure what compassion means. So sometimes it's easier to go through the idea of just smiling and then looking kindly. And then from there, you get a sense of empathy and compassion. But I think what's quite important is that it shouldn't be like a feeling sorry for. It's more of there's more care and kindness in there. So one of the ways of thinking about it is that if you saw a young child who was crying, you would just go over and pick them up and give them a hug and comfort them, kind of rock them, without analysing initially what it was that was wrong.
Yes.
And the child will become calmer simply because you have held them. And it's exactly the same with our relationship with our own body, is learning to just embrace it is really powerful. So to go back to when I was in the really difficult trauma stages of post my cancer treatment, my adrenal glands, which sit just above your kidneys, which pump out the adrenaline and all the other stress hormones and so on, were really painful, and I would actually get the lower back pain. I could feel a surge of adrenaline and then lower back pain, and my skin, I couldn't have sheets against my skin or couldn't water and stuff because my whole nervous system was shut from all the radiotherapy damage. So I would go to, because I could feel such a strong stress response, I would imagine my adrenal glands, and then I would imagine and the images change, which is really interesting. They change all the time. Each time I would do it, it'd be slightly different. But I remember for quite a long time, it was imagining wrapping my adrenal glands in cotton wool and taking time to really tie little bows around them. It sounds, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I overshare at times.
No, I love this. No. But we've got to have these conversations because people can't learn if we don't know.
But it was a real, that for me was an image that showed that I would be calming my adrenals by wrapping them in cotton wool, tying little pink ribbons around them, and going back to them. And every time my body had this surge of adrenaline, I learned to just breathe and literally send that idea of comforting, cuddling my adrenal glands, soothing them and saying, it's okay. I know that this is awful for you at the moment. I really appreciate what you're doing, but please believe me, this is okay. Like, I am just lying in my bed at the moment. We're safe. That isn't going to happen anymore. We'll be all right. We'll come through this. And all of the kind of things that you would say to a child were just directed towards my nervous system.
Oh gosh, that's emotional.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah. It was emotional at the time. But that little bit of distance between being caught inside and overwhelmed by my stress response and having that very slight distance to see that this was being produced by my adrenal glands in response to all the stress that my body had been through was just enough that I could therefore send kindness to that part of myself. And I think that, and then gradually what you do with those loving kindness meditations is that you work it out, you know, the more normal way to do it is to your whole self. And then there's a whole, or the whole loving kindness thing is fascinating. I find it really, really interesting. But there's another part to the loving kindness, which is that you start to realize that other people suffer too. And so I'm part of sanghas, which are groups of people that meet, so all faiths or none. But I happen to practice in a Zen tradition called Plum Village, which is by Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, and you meet. Every sangha meets at different times. We meet. I go to 2 different sanghas, so I go a couple of times a week to other people where we share how the practice is helping us in our life and learn from each other. And I think a real value of that is realizing that if we experience any human emotion, we are not the only human that feels that.
So could anyone do that sort of thing? Is it possible to find, how do you, if someone wanted to start looking into how they would do that sort of thing and find a group to start practicing with, or
you just go, it's Plum Village UK is the website, and on there it's you know, you can find there's sangha listings, and sangha is just a group of people. So and we're all meeting on Zoom at the moment, so actually it's quite a good time to join, even if you don't have very much meditation practice. But what I would say though is that there's no teaching. So if you've never meditated before, it's a little bit of a jump sometimes, unless you're the kind of person that is happy to read it in a book and just give it a go. Because it's about practicing together. There's not, even though there's one person who's facilitating the group, it's not teaching. So if you've got no experience at all, then it might be worth finding a mindfulness meditation teacher in your area. Or again, there's so much good stuff online. And in fact, on my website, which is soulnutrition.org, I've put together some listings of places that are doing good, what I would call like teaching how to courses.
Wonderful. Your website is wonderful, and I've directed clients to your website on many occasions because you have these resources available. It's, you know, I'm always coming from the point of food. So, you know, it's those resources where people can monitor, sort of use mindfulness techniques around the food that they're eating and how it makes them feel and all of that sort of thing. It's just wonderful. What do you want to talk about those resources?
So the resources, there are a number of resources on there. So the one that you're talking about is called Nourish, and it's a mindful eating food diary. So so the way that it works, you just sign up on the website. It's all free, and you know, I never sell your details. In fact, you can you're kind of encouraged to put in whatever name, because every time you go in, the website says hello, and so mine says Lovely. And it comes in and I go, hello, Lovely. It doesn't say it out loud. It's just written, but I hear it in that accent in my head. So so you can put in whatever name, you know, is good. And then you can use it on your mobile phone. You go into the Nourish elements of it, which is the food diary. You can take a photograph of what you're eating, upload it. So this is how I would suggest you use it. Take a photograph, upload it. And while it's uploading, turn the phone down and then concentrate on eating your food, because the basics of mindful eating, as I'm sure you know, and most of your listeners will know, is to actually focus on the food.
Yes.
So mindfulness is about a main element of mindfulness is focused attention on what is actually happening in the present moment. So if you're eating something, to actually be looking at what you are eating and connecting with it is a real foundational thing. So one of the ways to remember that is that you can think of it as if you go to a really beautiful restaurant. So I think of this as Michelin star mindful eating. Is if you go for a beautiful meal, what do you do when the meal arrives? You know, you look at it.
Yes.
And you really connect with it, and you're interested in it, and you're looking at the flavors and the textures, and you smell it, and you know, you're really connecting with what is going on. And as you start to eat it, you're really focusing on the flavor.
Yes.
And the balance, and you're thinking about, oh, I'll try a little bit of this, and you know, really connecting. And then if you think of how most of us eat, particularly breakfast, I think is a dreadful one, where most people might eat it in front of breakfast news, which at the moment just an awful thing. So you're hearing all this really difficult information whilst you're trying to eat. And as I'm sure you know, the way that your nervous system works is you're in fight or flight.
Yes.
Rest and digest is the opposite.
Yes.
So if you are listening to difficult information whilst you're eating, your body will be getting incredibly mixed signals. And I'm sure I know that you know, is that's how we work with a lot of people with IBS and things like that, is by simply allowing, in the traditionally you would say some kind of prayer before you ate. And that serves a really important purpose.
Well, yeah, I think I was saying to you, wasn't I, that I get quite a lot of clients to do a short 10-minute meditation before eating, especially if there are lots of us who, actually, I'm not including myself in this, but a lot of people who have, from their formative years, been brought up with quite a stressful eating. So either family dynamics or relationships with foods that are passed down through the family, tension, all sorts of things that can, surface every time you're thinking of eating. The messages we can pick up from our formative years about food and our relationship with food can be quite they linger without us, even if we're not mindful.
Yes,
they're there without us realizing. And sometimes, simply, I have had clients who quite honestly have had a terrible IBS, bloating, pain, and it's not really been anything that we've done nutritionally that's made the difference. It's been the meditation before eating, the change in approach, understanding the relationship with food, and the liberation from the shackles of some of those things. Unbelievably powerful. So it's amazing, isn't it? And what about so I guess, and we eat with our eyes as well, don't we? And I think it's another way of loving or showing compassion to yourself, I suppose, isn't it, by putting something nice in front of you to eat, and just taking that attention with even how you're serving it up and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, and again, I think particularly if the difficulty is focused around food, is to also begin, as I've mentioned, in other parts of life. So, for example, just getting dressed is an act of kindness, because if particularly if you go outside and it's cold, so you could go out without a coat on.
Yes,
it'd be cold.
Yes.
And we all put a coat on without even thinking twice about it, or being cross because it's cold, or it's rain, blah, blah, blah. But if you think, as you would to a child or to your best friend, you can imagine if your best friend was going out out in the snow with no stuff on, you'd go, my goodness, you'll be cold, let me put your coat on, and you can imagine like putting a scarf around, putting a hat on, gloves, let me find you some gloves to borrow, and it's an act of kindness. And so we can bring that sense of kindness into our own lives. And even saying it, I feel really emotional. And this is a massive turning point for so many of us, is just learning that even putting our socks on in the morning can be an act of kindness. For a lot of people, what that does, and the reason that I mention this is because I don't want people hearing this who start to feel emotional, think it's just them and there's something wrong with them. It's really common for all of us, whatever kind of background we have. This idea of being that kind to ourselves is almost overwhelming.
Yeah, that I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I'm actually thinking about the fact that, especially at the moment, I'm not actually affording myself that kindness very well at the moment. I'm not thinking about anything to do with.
And that's because at the moment, because we're recording this in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, is we are quite rightly in the middle of our nervous systems going crazy. You know, if ever you needed an excuse to be anxious, now is the time, you know, because it's a life-threatening pandemic, whatever your thoughts about how that is being communicated and what the real and perceived threat is, and et cetera, it is a time when our nervous systems are protecting us right now. We're in overdrive of fight or flight. So if in the middle of this pandemic we can learn self-kindness, I think that the human race is going to go in a very different direction.
Yeah. Oh, this is powerful, isn't it? This is amazing.
It's such an opportunity to change things. And the other thing that I would say around food as well, and you see, the idea of mindfulness is that you would practice a meditation to practice focus, for example, or to explore something in more depth. But the point is that you practice so that it becomes second nature in everything that you do. So, for example, preparing food is a fabulous meditation. You know, and so I did some wonderful mindful eating retreats with, Kesh Desai, who's now on TV all the time. I'm still in a lot of contact with Kesh, but I was really lucky. I worked with him at a beautiful hotel called Luckland Park, where they're in their cookery school, and we did mindful eating retreats together, mindful eating and cooking, and worked alongside Kesh, who uses meditation in his own life. And he was explaining, he was saying, yes, but feel the vegetable, like feel a carrot, and now feel a knife, and choose the knife that is beautifully weighted in your hand, and now place it against the carrot and let the knife move through it. So do you see how cutting a carrot feels different from cutting broccoli? And can you feel that if you slice it differently, it feels different? So you can imagine it tasting different. And the whole thing is just this a way to connect with what is happening in the present moment in such a deep way that you get into this sense of flow and being present, which is part of the soothing part of our soothing systems within our nervous system. So as well as fight and flight and rest and digest, there's also the soothing element, which isn't talked about very much with it, of the way that our nervous systems work. And so actually preparing food, if you're conscious that preparing food starts to trigger a stress response, you can use the very act of preparing the food to feel the rhythm and to really concentrate on, if you're washing lettuce, the tap, you know, I don't know if your tap is made of metal, it feels a certain way, and you turn it, and then amazingly we have clean water. So there's something to be grateful for. And then the feel of how one lettuce leaf of a certain, you know, an iceberg lettuce feels different from, you know, a different type of lettuce. Everything has got a different texture as well as a different way of looking at it, and the way that the water falls over it. All of those kind of things you can use consciously to soothe your nervous system so that it begins to see the preparation of food as something to look forward to.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean? So there are other whole ways that you can use mindfulness to connect more closely with what you are, and also to think about where the food came from, of course. So say you've got that piece of lettuce in your hand, to think about, well, where has this lettuce come from? Look at all the care behind it. So it would have started as a seed that somebody planted somewhere. And so that there was literally space, there was nothing. And then into that space grew a lettuce into fresh air out of what? I mean, it's breathtaking.
Yes.
But that whole process of, there were molecules that were in the air and in the soil,
Mm.
and the combination of air and sunlight and rain and soil, literally those molecules rearrange themselves and miraculously become a lettuce. I mean, it's mind-blowing, really.
Yes.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
And it's showing this right from the beginning when you said this tip of the iceberg, isn't it? How you can really see how you would just get drawn, and it is only positive, isn't
Absolutely.
it? It's only positive.
It is, yeah.
Would you say that?
I didn't even think of an iceberg lettuce at the time, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I didn't make that connection either.
It wasn't until you said it, but yeah, and that wasn't a terrible joke that was set up from the beginning, but it was fast. I had to mention that. But it is mine. I think your question is a really interesting one. Is it always positive? Bits of it are difficult, frankly.
Yes, yeah.
Bits of it are difficult, and that's why the kindness and the non-judging is such an important part of the practice. Is because it is difficult to look at the parts of you that you don't like very much, and we all have those, loads of them, and it's, for a lot of us, it's much easier to focus on those. You know, if somebody said to you, write a list of all the things you don't like about yourself, most of us go, oh yeah, give me a pen. Right, here we go.
Yes.
Got loads of that. And if people say, write a list of the things you like about yourself, there are a lot of us that would find that much more difficult. And even becoming aware of that opens up the potential for profound positive change.
Yeah, I think also, especially sort of relevant for women, is even if deep down you think there's something that you're proud about yourself, about what you think you're good at, the thought of sharing it even to yourself, there's a degree of shame and who do you think you are? Isn't
Absolutely.
there?
Definitely. And that's where I think mindfulness, particularly for women like us, is so profound, is because I've been amazed. I mean, I was brought up in a very loving household. I've got wonderful friends around me. You know, I've had some really difficult stuff in my life, but generally speaking, I've been incredibly lucky. And yet still I have all this negative talk inside me, which until I started practicing mindfulness, I wasn't really aware of. And what mindfulness has enabled me to do is to build first of all, by coming back to the breath time and time again, is that my breath becomes a comfort that is always with me. And so one of the first things we do in mindfulness is work with people about coming back into the body and feeling the body just being rocked by the breath as a sense of comfort.
It's all so fascinating, Katie. I mean, I think we could carry on talking for about 4 or 5 hours, because I mean, it just the layer upon layer upon layer of it all is absolutely fascinating. It's a joy, isn't it? I'm actually keen to look up that website that you told me about to see if I can find a local group for myself, actually, based on this.
Yeah, Plum Village UK, that's it.
But in terms of the work that you're doing, because there'll be people that will desperately want to work with you now, I'm sure. How's the best way for them to be able to get hold of you, and where can they find you?
So my website is soulnutrition.org. And obviously my name is Katie Sheen. So if you just Google Katie Sheen Mindfulness, I'll come up, and all my social media stuff is there. So message me through social media. You know, I'm on all of those, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, all that malarkey, or through my website, obviously. And what I'm doing at the moment is so I've got a strong scientific background, and I have been working for the last 2 years as a research manager for a national brain cancer charity. So I've just been furloughed, and I am now looking at where I go with all my mindfulness things. So actually what would be really helpful is if people contact me and let me know what they're looking for.
Right, okay.
Because I am literally at the moment, I'm about to update the website, and I'm about to work out what people want. Because I think during this pandemic, I don't know about you, but certainly I've been aware for me that the first few weeks was just trying to sort out how I could get food, kind of thing, and what was going to happen and I was feeling very, very insecure, and I'm only just beginning to think, oh, okay, I can see some kind of rhythm to this, and you know, and starting to build a new life. And so what I found up till now is that it's been very scattered as to what people want. So I've got a free mindfulness for anxiety course, which is pre-recorded, which you can watch at your own pace at any time. I've got the free app. I've got Nourish, which we talked about, the mindful eating food diary. I've also got something called the happiness calendar on my website, which again helps us to focus on 3 positive things each day. What I am doing at the moment is webinars for workplaces and for charities and for support groups. Some of those are on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis, which is great, because then we can respond to how people are each week. So if there are enough people out there that want to do that, I could, maybe set something up for the general public around that. So I think a two-way conversation. If somebody is listening to this and has an idea of how they would like to work with me, then contact me, and let's see. We've got an amazing opportunity, I think. Now, there's so much suffering within this pandemic. It's awful. Really, really awful what so many people are going through. But there are others for whom I think this is a good opportunity to really assess how we live our lives and how we want to live going forwards, and what we want to have in our days. And so I kind of see my work going forwards as responding to how it all unfolds.
That's wonderful. How exciting. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for taking the time to speak to me today.
Well, thank you for asking me.
It's been an absolute joy, and I think people will get a huge amount from this. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you in real life at some point again soon.
That would be so nice. That would be so nice. Yeah, absolutely.
But in the meantime, take care of yourself. Thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I would be absolutely delighted if you would help me spread the word about Katie's work and all of the other wonderful guests that I have lined up for you over the coming weeks. Your support is so appreciated, and if you found this episode helpful or inspiring, I'd be hugely grateful if you'd give it a 5-star review and subscribe in order to be alerted to future episodes, and also to share with any friends or family members who you think might benefit from listening. I'd also love to hear from you on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Nicola Moore Nutrition, or on Facebook also at Nicola Moore Nutrition. I use social media to continue the championing of positive health messages and relationships with food, which I do by sharing regular educational videos, written posts, and news about my webinars and public speaking events. You can also visit my website at www.nicola-moore.com to read blog posts and learn more about my online clinic, my work with businesses and charities, and the student and practitioner support groups that I run. Thanks again to the sponsors of this series, the Institute for Optimum Nutrition, to James Eade at Be Heard Production, and also a very special note of thanks to my dearest friend and colleague, Jenny Pitt at Balance Consulting, who calmly and with the patience of a saint coached me to finally press release on this project. It's been lovely spending time with you again today, and I hope you'll return for the next episode of Healthily.